Well, good evening. The boat feels a little lopsided. I guess we're just all going to be on this side this evening. I am Sarah Minton. I think I know most everybody here. Yes. I am the president of the standing committee for 16 more days, but who's counting? And I am so grateful to be here with my brothers and sisters in Christ. I am so grateful for Holy Comforter for hosting tonight and for Father Allen. Thank you. At this meeting this time last year, I had not preached here. It was kind of a strange church to me. And now it's like another little home church to me, like a home away from home. My daughter Hannah works here. And so I've had the blessing to be able to preach and come and celebrate. It's a beautiful place. So I just want to say thank you, welcome. I'm glad you're all here. If you have any questions, of course, we're here to answer the questions. I am going to open us in prayer, and then Keith is going to do the rest, and William Stokes is going to talk about the nomination. So we are pumped for convention. It's going to be a beautiful, holy time for all of us to be together and rock on. So here we go. The Lord be with you. We thank you for bringing us together, Holy God. We thank you for this holy place to listen and to learn. We ask your blessing on our time together as we prepare for our upcoming convention. God, give us listening ears, open our hearts, and give us patient spirits, so that all we say and do may be guided by your love. Grant us clarity in our conversations and unity in our common mission to proclaim the good news of Jesus. Bless those who will lead, serve, and deliberate, that all our work may bring glory to you and strengthen your church for the sake of the world. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
Well, again, welcome from me. I'm Keith. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Diocese. It's my great pleasure and honor to have that role and to serve the church in the Diocese of Florida. I've been in that role now for about 1.5 years, and it's been a really interesting time. Makes the 37 years of law before that look pretty dull. And I love coming to Tallahassee, not only because I have a grandbaby here and a daughter and son-in-law, but because I'm basically a Tallahassean. I grew up in Gadsden County, and it's always like coming home to come to Tallahassee. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, let's go to the slide, Fred, please. And I want to thank Fred also. He does amazing AV work. And because of him, I've told Father Allen that that Holy Comforter may be the permanent pre-convention meeting space, because Fred does such a great job. Again, I want to first review what we're going to do tonight, just so you know what to expect. We're going to talk next about the convention agenda, so you're prepared, if you're a delegate, to know what times are happening, what's happening at what times, and that sort of thing. Then we're going to go through the resolutions. I'm not going to go through them in depth. There's an excellent report that the Charter and Canons Committee posted, that's posted on the convention website under the resolutions tab. You have to kind of scroll down to find it. But I do have a full copy of the resolutions with me. And because I'm their scribe, I'm happy to talk it over with you. Amy's also here, and serves wonderfully on that committee. Then Father William Stokes will join us as one of the co-chairs of nominations to review who's nominated for what at this point. Then I get to sub for our treasurer on the financial summary, and I'm really proud of the job that he and our controller have done in presenting the key financial information and also some really helpful reflections on financial matters. I've been involved in doing pre-conventions now for about 3 years, and the summary that Bob has written is one of the best we've ever had, and I'm just really thankful for that. Now, the agenda says that we'll have Q&A at the end, but I know for me, if my brain's on a subject that we're touching as a group, it's helpful for me to stop then and talk about the question then. So please don't feel constrained. We will have a wrap-up question and answer session, but as we go through things that are detailed, like the resolutions, the nominations, the financial summary, please feel free to stop us and let's talk about your question there. I know I greatly personally prefer that. If you would, I know we're in a nice warm space together, but if you would, please do use the microphone, and I'm happy for y'all to just pull it out of the stand and pass it around. You don't have to get up and go to the microphone. But this is being live streamed, and it's beneficial to the folks who are watching the live stream to know what the question was and how it was answered and that sort of thing. So please do, if you've got a comment or question, grab the microphone so that we can share it with others who aren't here with us. We can go 2 more slides, Fred. Okay, that's not the whole agenda. That's the bad news. No, I mean, because if worship and food were the whole agenda, hey. But we're breaking the agenda into 3 different segments so that you can see it in bites, basically. So first page, as you can see here, we're really excited both about the beautiful Holy Eucharist that we will have in Mandy's at 5 o'clock on Friday night, but also about the Low Country Boil. We wanted to do something special. It was so fun last year to be able to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Camp Weed in kind of a festive way. And we wanted not to go from that to just, cheese sandwiches. So we're going to do the team from St. Francis in the Field, who were trained by Joe Chamberlain, so it's good, are going to do a Low Country Boil for us, and then we'll have ministry tables from some of the different ministries in the diocese. And then we'll wind up our day, and I'm really excited about this because I love Mandy's at night. We'll wind up our day with Compline at 9. We can go to the next slide, Fred. Then the next morning, one of the things, and I'm going to embarrass her, Mother Rachel has done such a beautiful job of organizing the worship and spiritual side of this convention. I love that we're closing our day the day before with Compline and starting our day the next day with morning prayer. And I'm even going to get out of bed for it. I love to sleep in, but I'm even going to get out of bed because that's just a great way to start the day. Then we'll have a continental breakfast. We're trying to also include proteins because I know that some of us are kind of carb sensitive and we don't want to put us to sleep right off the bat. So we'll try to integrate some proteins in that too, but we'll have breakfast under the tent on the Youth Pavilion patio. We'll do check-in beginning at 9, and we're going to do check-in like we did it at the special meeting this summer inside, because for one thing, it's better lit. Our team can and our volunteers can see better, and also it's air conditioned. So if it's a warm morning, it will not be in such a humid environment. Then there's the next item, which has the Sarah Minton footnote. We're calling to order at 10 o'clock, and to quote Mother Sarah, please be in your seats. We'll again open our session with some worship. Bishop Mary Gray Reeves will come and share with us a report of her work on the committees that Marcy and others have been involved in around both the convocations and then the listening sessions this year, and also discuss where we're going from here on continuing to work on healing and reconciliation with one another. Then we'll do the formalities of our meeting opening, which will include the credentials and the formal presentation of the agenda. Mother Sarah will give an opening address or report. And we're doing resolutions then next in the morning. And the reason for that, you know how we've been working at the diocese, or hopefully you've noticed that we've been working at the diocese. Anytime we have a meeting, you get a survey question. And some of the results of the meeting, the convention last year, were that folks didn't want to do resolutions after lunch because they had to think too much. So we are doing resolutions in the morning. And there are about 9 that we'll discuss in a little bit that are already in process and floating around. And also you'll see that both in the morning session and also in the afternoon session, there's a general reference to diocesan ministries and committees. We will filter in as we go through the day reports about Camp Weed and reports about racial reconciliation and that ministry and other specialty ministries that we want to highlight for you. We can go to the next slide, please, Fred.
Keith,
Yes, ma'am.
you can just add that we have asked everybody to keep them short.
Oh, yes.
The reports will not be long.
Right. For those of you, for the
Dancing. Just kidding.
well, the Israelites did it, you know. For those of you on live stream, Mother Sarah was just promising short reports. And are we on afternoon? Yes, thank you. Then, as is the wonderful requirement of our rules of order, we will offer at noon the prayer for mission and ministry, and then we'll move, hopefully right after that, into lunch. Unless we're in the middle of something, then we'll finish that up and then move to lunch. Then when we come back from lunch, we will start with the financial reports that I'm going to summarize for you tonight. Again, we'll be peppering in ministry and committee reports, and we'll move to elections. And again, we will be doing both the voting on resolutions and the voting on elections electronically, because that has proved to be such an outstanding time saver and efficiency mechanism. Then the incoming president of the standing committee will speak to us. We'll be commissioning many different ministries. We'll have closing prayer and we'll adjourn. Any questions on the agenda? Okay, let's walk through the resolutions. Open this so that I have them in front of me. And these QR codes, go to the actual resolution text. They're different from the QR code that is for the meeting materials for tonight. The First Amendment is are we on Amendment 1? Can we go on more screen, please, Fred? Thank you. On Resolution 1, we have noticed, obviously, that with the movement of convention to September, there are provisions in our canons that were hardwired in anticipating a January convention, because for so many years our convention was in January. And it slid because we had to have a convention in 23, and we had not had one, and so that one ended up in November. And so Standing Committee projected the next in September, and we've stayed on that September path. I'm not telling you we'll always be on a September path, but what I'm telling you is that the committee realized that there were hardwired dates that didn't make sense for reports being due, eligibility, all those sorts of things that needed to be addressed if we weren't going to always have a January convention. So that's really what a lot of you that you see in Resolution 1. And as the summary says, it proposes to update deadlines and procedures for the annual convention. It actually touches 4 different canons. It requires for the time periods in advance of when convention is, and it's that sort of thing. And as the committee, again, I was their scribe, so I got to sit and listen to what they were discussing. As they edited it, they also tried to winnow the text down to be lean and to say what it needed to say. So again, that's what Resolution 1 is. Does anybody have any questions on Resolution 1 before we move on to the next? Could we go to the next slide for Resolution 2, please, Fred? Resolution 2 did 2 great things. One, it took out a category of lay delegates that nobody really knew what it meant. There was a category of delegates for delegates at large that were to be appointed by the diocesan council. Nobody knew if it had ever been used, what it was for, and because we want to clean things up and make them comfortable, be transparent about our organization and government, the committee felt that that needed to come out. This had actually come up in connection with the special meeting this summer because people were looking at the canons and they're like, what does that mean? So that's why it came out, is it didn't really have a purpose. Nobody felt a need for it, and so Charter and Canons proposed to remove it. Then, excuse me, one other thing in the concept of different type of lay delegates that are delegates to our convention, the Florida Convention, was that the language related to the delegates who are deputies to General Convention was identified by some of the committee as being too vague, and that it needed to be clear that just because General Convention had been held, that fact, the General Convention had been held, does not and did not mean that the deputies to General were no longer delegates to Florida. So the main focus of what the committee did there, or proposes to do there, is to state that a deputy stays a deputy until the deputy's successor is elected. So it makes clear, again, the committee's working so hard towards clarity and transparency, it makes clear who that lay delegate is and what attributes she or he has. So that's Resolution 2. Any questions about it before we move on? A lot of these resolutions, one thing that I think the committee did wisely this year is, instead of trying to build one massive resolution that has lots of different focal points, they kept the resolutions subject-oriented. So the first resolution's about cleaning up dates and matters related to convention. The second one's about the deputies to convention, the lay deputies to convention. Then let's go to Resolution 3. Very short resolution. Literally doesn't even take up like a fifth of the page. But it's very clear that and this is a comment actually that bubbled up through Facebook of all places. It was proposed that, to be clear, the requirement that the journal of convention be electronically available is something that meant something to people. And again, with a focus on clarity, transparency, and an even playing field, the committee proposes a resolution that simply states that the diocese will make the journal electronically available. Again, trying to clean up and clear up wherever we can. Any questions on that resolution on 3? Okay, moving to 4. Yes?
Will past ones be available?
The ones that are available on there now, I think go back to 18. There are matter of fact, we were already putting them on electronically where we could, Pam, and I think that I think we have online now 18, and of course we have back to 1838 in the office. Actually, I had somebody come and look at some of the older ones because there's an issue about a church that's now in Central Gulf Coast, and it was an historical consultant, and she went and dug until she found what she needed, but we were the source of it. The question, just to make sure everybody heard, is whether there are older journals online, and there are some already. But of course, anytime anybody has a question, if there's not online, we'll get it to you. Now, there's the next resolution is very interesting in a lot of ways because it's experientially based. Are we on 4? Yes, thank you, Fred. As you may remember, over the last couple of years, the convention had presented to it and then considered and adopted an amendment of Canon 1 that provided for participation in convention by electronic means. And a lot of this had arisen in the last bishop election because we were having trouble establishing quorum, in part because our quorum rules needed to be cleaned up, which we did. And what we found really through this summer, and again with the bishop election, is that number one, Zoom is a little bit risky. The presiding bishop's office actually advised us to take care about having Zoom, and it turned out that we were probably the only diocese that had Zoom, and that it was really risky for a couple of reasons. One is that our ballots have to be secret. By our charter, our ballots have to be secret in the election of a bishop. So one of the reasons the committee looked at it was because we had the experience, we'd gotten the advice from the presiding bishop's office that it really wasn't the best way to do things, that the technology, although we have the technology for meeting purposes, it really doesn't gel with voting, particularly secret ballot voting. And it is deadly expensive. Our electronic or AV expenses probably, they increased at least by a fold. So they went from X to 2X at least. And as much as we want to make the meeting available to people, and there are people who can attend for health reasons and other reasons, the committee considered it carefully and created this resolution to delete that provision, the participation by communication means, that was only adopted last year. And it was because of that host of reasons. And actually, again, I'd point you to, excuse me, the committee did a great report on the resolutions that's on the resolutions page on our webpage. And as you think about this resolution particularly, I think some of the analysis that's there, I'm going to give Wiley a plug. Father Wiley Ammons wrote a lot of that, and he did a really fine job of explaining it. Much better than I just did. But if you're particularly interested in this resolution and you're kind of on the fence about how you feel about it, please do read that report and the section about Resolution 4. It's just beautifully done. And we'll come back to this concept again in just a minute. Any questions on Resolution 4?
Do you know if we allow voting by proxy?
We do not. The question was, do we allow voting by proxy? We do not. There's no provision for proxy. Great question, though. Okay, Fred, let's go to Resolution 5. Okay, this is another super exciting resolution, but again, we're trying to clean up and be clear. That's all it is, right there. And what it does is of course, Standing Committee since the fall of 23 has been meeting about every 20 minutes. But what
16 days, 16 days.
Yes, some of us don't get a, yes, some of us still have to be staff after 16 days. Yeah, you're weeping, I can tell. Resolution 5 simply ups the ante for Standing Committee when we're not in Standing Committee as ecclesiastical authority stage. Literally, the existing historic provision is that they only had to meet once a year. Now, they could meet, there are other provisions, before that sounds too terrible, there are other provisions that they can meet upon the bishop's call, because after they're no longer ecclesiastical authority, they're advisory to the bishop. That's their express role. And they also can call their own meeting. So standing committee can call itself to its own meeting, and the bishop can call them, but in the absence of that, they only had to previously meet once a year. And the committee decided that that should be at least once a quarter, so that they're meeting at least 4 times a year, so that they're in the know, understand what's going on, because to that focus is standing committee is one of the most the most broadly elected body of governance in our church. Diocesan Council is very important. It has elected members as well. It also has appointed members, but it's important because it manages our purse and our property. But standing committee is 100% elected, 3 clergy, 3 lay. So it's important. I tease about the resolution being so brief, but it's important that it be tied into the life of the diocese and the concerns of the diocese, and know what's going on in the diocese. So it really is meritorious for it to meet 4 times a year, at least. So let's roll to 6, please. Now, you'll remember that when we talked about electronic voting, participation by electronic means, that I told you that the subject would come up again. So Charter and Canons looked at that provision, and we as a diocese had just adopted the special rules for the election of a bishop. And Charter and Canons didn't want there to be an inconsistency between the two. And so they actually, looking at that, proposed this resolution, which does the same thing in the special rules. It removes the participation by communication or electronic means. And that is to be parallel and symmetrical, so that there's no question when we come to election whether or not communication or electronic means are available or were intended to be available. We will have been clear about that as a body. We will, if we adopt this, we will be clear that it's true both for our convention meetings, and it's true also for the special election convention. Any questions about 6? Let's go to 7, please, Fred. This is the last of the resolutions proposed by Charter and Canons. And it also, this is what I lovingly call the Campweed Committee resolution. We have a wonderful set of dedicated volunteers who have been really scrubbing our Campweed operations. It would probably shock you, and I'll be mentioning it again when we talk about financial matters, that Campweed does not, and really probably never has, had a budget. And as they worked so intently on that, worked on the massive deferred maintenance issues at Campweed, the Camp and Conference Center Committee identified that the committee language of our canons, for some unknown, obtuse reason, provides that an appointed chair doesn't have a vote. And it appears that the intention was to make sure that the ministry of the bishop extended to all committees. But why the writers would also have disenfranchised the person who's actually leading the committee just didn't make sense to anybody. So this again is single purpose, focused on cleaning up that language, and really provides how committees are to be run. Interestingly, and in the trivia I never would have known before I was in this job department, we have in our diocese commissions, ministries, committees, diocesan council, and standing committee. As I've already said, standing committee is fully elected, diocesan council is elected and appointed. Commissions are appointed by the ecclesiastical authority and generally don't require any support or action by diocesan council. But committees are kind of like federal appointments. They have to be, they come out of the ecclesiastical authority and they have to be approved by diocesan council. So because this is about committees, it's all the more important that people who are being asked to serve should also be able to act on the committee subject that they've been called to. So that's what Resolution 7 is about. Any questions about it? Okay. Excuse me. And then two resolutions that have come back. They didn't come back to convention through charter and canons, but charter and canons had looked at them and they came back to the body. They were proposed in a timely fashion through our General Convention deputies. And so Resolution 8 and 9 are siblings. One, and they derive from the resolution that was not voted on last year, where youth presence in both diocesan council, that's 8, Resolution 8, and in the vestries and mission boards of our congregations are called, both diocesan council Resolution 8 actually places a youth member on diocesan council. Resolution 9 is more of an invocation to our congregations to have youth presence on their bodies, on their vestries and mission boards. So that's what those two are about. And that winds up the 9 resolutions that are pre-approved for presentation to convention. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Good job, Sarah Michael.
Hi, Sarah Michael Trupiano from St. John's, Tallahassee. I believe at least one of these resolutions, the language is similar to what was established in the special meeting for language for the election of a bishop, like the delegates at large. I think you had talked about that language being similar. If that does pass, will that automatically change the agreed upon rules for the election of a bishop?
Man, you've got a good memory, friend. Remember I said that the delegates at large language was identified through the special meeting?
And I couldn't remember.
It actually got taken out of the special rules.
Perfect, okay.
But it hadn't been taken out of the canons yet.
Right, which needed to happen.
So this makes that parallel and also does the General Convention deputy clear up.
Right, okay,
Right.
perfect, thank you.
Would you pass back to Marcy? I think, are you good? She got you? Okay. Would you pass back to William back there, please?
So for resolutions 4 and 6 about the electronic voting, is the way that the canon that's currently written, is that an option that the diocese can do, or it has to provide it for every single convention?
It's expressed in mandatory language.
Okay, so why I guess I'm confused. Like, why would we tie our hands again if we've just introduced this option? Why wouldn't we write the canon to maybe have the option to do the electronic means if
Right.
whoever felt necessary?
That was discussed, but just my own view of this, listening to the discussion and judging it. And Amy, if you want to chime in as well. The problem with shifting to optional language is it becomes who decides who decides. It is fodder for controversy. the grand poobah of whoever could decide, she or he being vested with this authority, could decide, no, I don't want to have Zoom, right? Mm-hmm. And then sibling says, why don't we have Zoom? I want Zoom. I think it's necessary. So it becomes literally fodder for disagreement. And the conclusion was, after they reviewed it and looked at data, that it was better to strike it all together until some possible day when it might be better supported and more facile, if you will, more nimble, that we could always go back to it, add it in a future canon amendment. But the way it stands now, to have it as a shall, or as a mandatory option is really the way it's worded, was not the right approach for the several reasons. It was not highly utilized. I think we had 11 or 12. It was inordinately expensive. It slowed down vote reporting. And again, we had a recommendation from folks who had dealt with it in the wider church that it could be difficult to use, if not impossible to use, in a bishop election. Again, because of the secret ballot requirement. And the way that it worked this time, Father William, was literally one person from outside the diocese, a contractor, watched the video screen of the Zoom of the participants and had to identify and count and then relay to the electronic voting vendor the number that had voted in each way on the Zoom. So they had to be identified. Their decision, their ballot, their vote was not secret. It was known to someone. I mean, we did everything we could to be careful that it not be known to any member of the diocese. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell a story on myself. You may remember at the special meeting when we went to vote at one point, I stood up because I was concerned. It was because we could see at the head table the Zoom screen with people voting. And I was concerned. I wasn't as concerned about the head table knowing as I was the big screens knowing. Right, and I didn't realize that they had through a splitter closed off the big screens so the body couldn't see it. I thought because we could see it at the head table, everybody could see it. And I knew that was not okay. But it turns out, I was later advised, that they had split so that the big screens didn't see it. But still, because the head table and the monitor could both see the votes weren't secret. And that's really the only technology that we can identify at this time to use. And because of that, it jeopardizes and violates our canon. So that's why at this time, Amy, do you want to add anything to that? That's why the Charter and Canons Committee felt like, and it was very interesting the way that committee took this up, because it was their own sense of how it had worked or not worked that really started the discussion. It didn't really come from staff or standing committee as, hey, y'all better look at this because the presiding bishop's worried about it. But they really kind of bubbled up organically from their experience. I hope that helped.
How do other dioceses across the church, do some allow this as we've allowed it, or is it like a kind of split? Or
I can only tell you anecdotally what I've been informed. Obviously, there have been dioceses that tried it because the presiding bishop's staff had seen it fail and had developed their concerns about it. So obviously, someone else had tried it. Anecdotally, I will tell you that when Deanna Peck, the secretary to the standing committee, went to a conference of bishops' assistants from all around the country. They were having a roundtable, and the subject of electronic voting came up. And Deanna shared that we were literally the only diocese that allowed it, and that all of the other admins said to her, "Y'all are crazy." So there really does seem to be some sense that it's not the right thing, not the right time. Again, there may come a day when the technology is better, but for now, the charter and canons felt it needed to go away. Thank you for that question. Any other questions on the resolutions? Well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend William to come and talk to us about the nominations. And William, yeah, you saw that you got this up here.
Well, on behalf of the nominating committee this year, it is a joy to be with you all and to share with you a number of the servant-minded leaders that we have up for election this year at our convention. Just to give an overview, let's see, can we switch to slide 21? There we go. The different positions we are electing. We are electing diocesan council. There are 2 lay spots open, one in the River region and one in the Appalachia region, sorry. We also have a diocesan council clergy spot that's open, along with the next slide, please, a clergy and a lay for disciplinary board. The standing committee this year has 4 spots open, 1 clergy for 2-year term, 1 clergy for 3-year term, 1 lay person for 2-year term, and then 1 lay person for 3-year term. And finally, there is 1 position open on the Suwannee Board of Trustees. We will be electing 1 lay person to a 3-year term. And then can we skip forward? So our diocesan council nominees, on the clergy side of things, we've got 3 excellent candidates. The Reverend Wiley Amons, the Reverend Joe Gibbs, and the Reverend Quinn Parman. And you can see their pictures on the next slide. There we go. For diocesan council, again, there are 2 spots open. In the Appalachia region, we have James Fort, James Fort, Amy Johnson, and Lauren Soto. In the River region, we have John Currington, Bob Hood, and Meredith Schwartz. And then if we can see their pictures, please. There we go. Yes. Can you go backwards? They're all kind of mixed together in the last list. Yeah, there you go.
So they're alphabetical.
Yes.
But they would be elected.
Right. So 1 category is River and 1 category is Appalachia. All right, let's see, can we move to the pictures? There we go. All right. Now let's move to the disciplinary board. We have 1 clergy spot open. We have Reverend Terry Calanau, thank you, Sarah, and the Reverend Ken Johnston. And then if we can see their pictures, please. There we go. And then for the lay side of things on the disciplinary board, we have Gina Donahue and Fred Koberline. For the standing committee, got a lot of candidates here. For the clergy for the 3-year term, we have the Reverend Kurt Benham, the Reverend Lisa Miro, and the Reverend Roy Tuff. Again, that's the 3-year slot. For the 2-year slot, we have the Reverend Bob Goolsby, who is currently the incumbent. Is that correct? He's currently in that spot. And also Marcia Holmes. And then, let's see, for the lay side of things, again, this is the 3-year slot. We have Pam Jordan Anderson, Bob Bune, Aurelia Donaldson, Glenn Geiler, Bob Hood, and Mary Dudley White. That is for the 3-year term. For the 2-year lay term, we have Byron Green, Caroline Nichols, Ann Seraphin, Jack Toll. Jack is the current incumbent in that slot, and Rhonda Williams. And then moving to the Swanee Board of Trustees, there are 2 candidates. Again, this is the lay position on the Swanee Board of Trustees. We have Cortland Irick and Marissa Lingaitis. So this is our current slate of nominees. We are also at this convention going to be electing for the General Convention deputies. We will need 4 total with an extra 5th for the alternate, correct, Keith? Yeah. Okay. So that's 5 lay and 5 clergy. That nomination is actually still open. So if you or if you know someone who wants to go to Phoenix in the middle of the summer, please do consider that nomination. It's a very important position in terms of representing our diocese in the larger church. That nomination will close this upcoming Wednesday. Is that correct? Okay. We've gotten a number of candidates already, but we could use 1 or 2 more. So please do consider that position. Any questions about the nominations this year?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's been a long day.
I'm Lou Armesto from St. Paul's in Quincy. I found out how naive I was a couple of years ago to learn that many of the churches in the diocese were not tithing. That to me is a foundational issue. And I know there's been work done towards healing those breaches or solving those challenges or whatever. But at a bare minimum, can you attest that the nominating committee knows that none of the people you're proposing for leadership positions are in churches that are currently out of communion because they're not paying their tithe to the diocese?
I'm going to defer to Keith. Let me just say, we have been vetting all these candidates based on the criteria for each one of those positions as stated in our canon. So the bare minimum of vetting our committee has gone through.
Right. You stole my thunder.
Sorry.
That's okay, but you're welcome to, because y'all have done a great job. As Father William just indicated, the requirements of canon don't speak to the participation of the congregation where the candidate has home. They speak to the individual candidate being in good standing, a communicant in good standing. As Father William indicated, the committee has vetted all of that. It's a very interesting concept, but it's not currently in canon. I will say just real quickly that there is not a rampant failure to remit pledges on the part of our churches. Mark's on the Finance Committee. He knows certainly folks on the Diocesan Council see that as well. Every time each of those bodies meet, I will share that there was a situation that Standing Committee, Finance Committee, and Diocesan Council all worked deeply on related to a congregation that had been affronted and had not remitted, but not to play it down, but even that congregation is not out of date on remitting its pledge past about 3 or 4 months. We have a number of congregations that for financial reasons, reasons in the life of their congregation are not up to date, and we work on that constantly. Again, Finance and Diocesan Council look at it every time they meet. Our controller and I stay on top of it. But in quick summary, it's a very interesting concept and interesting idea, but it's not part of the canonical requirements. So that's about the best I can do with that. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Yeah, could you all clarify for us why some terms are for 2 years and why some are for 3 years?
You want to do that
I'll
one?
take this one.
He knows. He's really happy.
Been working with this nomination slate all summer. So for the standing committee, because of what happened last year, we're both the lay person on the standing committee and also the clergy person on the standing committee. Both those people resigned. So I guess the Diocesan Council voted for their replacements, but that was contingent upon another election for the 2-year slot in both the clergy and the lay at this year's convention, according to canon. So.
All right, okay, so that explains it. And
Yes.
when you say the incumbent, that means the person that
Currently,
was
yeah.
currently placed to replace
Yeah.
them, but they need to be elected now at this stage.
Correct, and I don't mean to, influence the election in any ill way. I'm just stating that,
Thank you.
they currently hold that seat.
Gotcha.
Did those nominees choose whether to stand for a 3-year term or a 2-year term?
They both chose to nominate for the 2-year.
So if someone was nominated, James Smith,
Sure.
did James Smith choose whether to run in the 2-year slot or the 3-year?
Correct. The way the form was filled out on the website, you had the option between the 3-year or the 2-year. So,
I just thought that
Yes.
might need some explanation.
thank you, Pam. Anyone else?
You're right, no, you just hold on.
I'll just hold on. I'll sing a little song,
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, now I get to pinch hit. But again, I'm really pleased with the quality of the financial summary that Bob has prepared for us. And he will do a much better job of presenting it, but I do want to run through it with you. Could we go to slide 46, please, sir? Okay, so again, this is when you're probably going to want to view it on your phone instead of up here, but I will definitely run through it. So what Bob is presenting, our treasurer, Bob White, our treasurer, is presenting to us is the 24 financials, and then we'll look at the 25 financials through July 31st, which was the last closed month. August hadn't been closed yet because it's just the 4th of the month. Actually, by the time we get to convention, I expect that Bob will be presenting the 25 financials through August, but because we're so close to August still, we can't yet present them. So first, let's talk about here on slide 46 about last year, about the performance of the diocese financially during 2024. As you can see on the top line, or each line that we review, the first number that's presented is what was actually experienced, the actual revenue, expense, et cetera. Then the budget appears in the next column, and then the variance from budget to actual is presented in the final column. So to run through that, for operating revenue, we had budgeted $2.41 million. And what comprises budget operating revenue, or operating revenue generally, are diocesan pledges, a relatively small amount of other income, for example, parking at Ruge Hall, other non-congregational pledge income or revenue. And then also, one of the main reasons that operating revenue exceeded budget it was a very good year for investments, and we had roughly $200,000 of investment income. So that's why our operating revenue exceeded budget by roughly $250,000. And I should stop right there and say one thing. In presenting these numbers for simplicity, Bob chose to have roughly a factor of about $10,000 and to kind of round to 10,000 rather than to go to precise numbers. I actually was studying this because I'm a geek right before the meeting to make sure I understood it and presenting it. And the variances, the budget amounts, et cetera, that you'll see are roughly to about a $10,000 rounding. So, and I have the precise numbers if any of them interest you, but I just wanted to kind of, all the numbers that we'll be discussing roughly are about a $10,000 rounding. So anyway, let's go down to expense. We budgeted $3.13 million of operating expense, which is really all of the diocesan expenses from ministry supports to the staff at the office, including me, the 2 college chapels, the support of the UNF campus ministry, the support of the FAMU campus ministry, all of those expenses, which have been referred to for years as the common ministry budget. All of those expenses, we had budgeted $3.13 million. We were under that by about $100,000, which is why we show operating expense actual of $3.03 million. Okay, now, so the operating bottom line is the next number that Bob presents. You can see that we were under budget, underfunded in our budget by $720,000 on the budget, but we actually came in, again, in part because of a substantial amount of investment income at $360,000. So for a net variance, it looks to you and looked to me as if I compared 720 and 360, the variance should be 360. But again, that's that rounding thing. It's why it fell that way. So what that leaves us with is a need to fill our operating deficit, because that's both of those are deficits, both budget and actual. And those are filled through non-operating revenue. We had budgeted for up to $740,000 of non-operating revenue, excuse me, but we only had to utilize $490,000 of non-operating revenue. And just to dig into that a little bit, so you're like, you're wondering, what did you go panhandle? No. Non-operating revenue comes from 2 sources, or did in 2024, 2 sources, and also in 2025. One is a grant from the Episcopal Foundation Incorporated, which you've, I'm sure, heard about, and is an independent corporation that is created for the benefit of the diocese. In 2024, they had committed up to $400,000, but we only had to draw $300,000 of the funds they had granted to us. The other funding that comprises that $490,000 actual is roughly $190,000 from the endowment. The way that I think of our funds is that we have 2 of the diocese's own set of investments. One is the Nehemiah Fund, and the other is the fund's investment account, which I call the endowment. And so we used $300,000 from the foundation's $400,000 grant and $195,000 of funds from the endowment. So that's how, and there's a typo I want to point out. In the variance column, the 220 should actually be $250,000. Because there is a variance from what we budgeted to what we used of $250,000. Pardon? No, that's a boo-boo. We're not even going to cover that in rounding. That's a boo-boo. So the bottom line is that for 2024, utilizing the non-operating income that we did, we came out pretty strongly with a positive variance. We had budgeted a variance of $20,000. We had an actual variance of $130,000. So we had a positive variance of $110,000. Let's see, and one caveat, I'm going to make sure that I present to you what Bob wanted me to present, or wants me to present, and that is, these numbers, of course, have not yet been audited. They will be, but they just have not been yet because they're for last year, and we're catching up on audits, but I'll come to that more later. So, now that we're in 2025, how have we done so far this year? Can we go to slide 47, please, Fred? The good news is that we are slightly ahead of our bottom line budget with an actual deficit of $23,000 versus a budget deficit of $57,000. Again, the numbers that you see here on the bottom line are rounded. They're within that $10,000 rounding. To date, through July 31st, we budgeted $144 million of revenue. We've accomplished $151,000. That's $151 million. Well, let's try that again. $1.51 million. Our expenses have been about where we expected them through July, with a variance of only $20,000. So our operating bottom line, what is our actual deficit through July 31st, we are positive on our deficit. We expected a deficit of $480,000. We have a deficit of $430,000. So that's good news, which means that we've been able to, again, not pull as much of the non-operating revenue from the foundation and the endowment. So again, through July, we're in good shape. I know that's a lot of number data, and so I'm going to stop right there and see if you have any questions about 2024 or 2025. Okay, so the next piece of information that Bob has done a really great job as treasurer of being a listening treasurer and hearing what people are talking about in the diocese from a financial perspective, and drawing on those questions that he gets asked to put this presentation together. And there's, as you would expect, always a question about how much debt do we have? And that's not an easy answer, but it's a very positive answer. It's a good answer. There's no fear or negativity wrapped up in it, and that's part of why he wanted to include some answers to questions about diocesan debt. So let's go to 48, slide 48. So there are really, when you think about loans and debt and diocesan finances, there are actually two sets of them. One is an asset of the diocese, and I'll explain that further in a minute, and one is technically a liability of the diocese. So let's talk about the first type of debt. As you see here, there are loans by the diocese to churches for special purposes. St. Swithin's in the Swamp, to use a good Bishop Ben Hayes analogy, has a problem where it needs a roof repair, and the roof repair snuck up on them. It hit them sooner than they expected, and so they come to the diocese under the Nehemiah program for support on that. through the Nehemiah program. And the kind of general rule about the Nehemiah Fund is that typically, particularly for smaller parishes, the diocese looks at the projected need. So St. Swithin's needs to spend $90,000 on a roof, okay? So in discussion with St. Swithin's, after first looking at how St. Swithin's is doing programmatically, what's its ASA, average Sunday attendance, looking like? What are the missions of St. Swithin's, et cetera? And how is it doing financially? Is it pledging to the diocese? Is it paying its pledge? Those sorts of things. How is its own internal finance working? And so when those informations are gathered, pieces of information are gathered, what typically, not always, typically is done is the congregation, St. Swithin's, is asked to have about a third, roughly a third, of the project funds on its own nickel, kind of its skin in the game, if you will. And then after underwriting its ability to do so, St. Swithin's is granted a 1/3, or in this case, a $30,000 loan. And that's what comprise these loans. And then St. Swithin's is typically given a $30,000 grant. All that's from the Nehemiah Fund. And just to take a quick side trip on the Nehemiah Fund, the Nehemiah Fund is an investment account fund of the diocese that is focused on real estate and buildings. So it would include roofs, it would include air conditioning systems, it would include components of the building, the organ, if suddenly somehow the congregation had developed a mold problem, everything related to the physical body of the congregation, the physical sticks and bricks of the congregation. So what we have presented here is that right now there are roughly $145,000 in loans extended to a total set of about 5 or 6 congregations and entities. And the repayment terms on those loans last from roughly 1 to 4 years. And what that means is that a number of those loans are 2 or 3 years into their lives. So St. Swithin's has paid 2 or 3 years of its loan already. And that's one set of debt. Now, but it's not, the interesting thing is it is debt, but it's not our debt to anybody. It's somebody else's debt to us. So technically, it's an asset of the diocese. It's not a liability of the diocese. But we're trying to make sure that we communicate thoroughly about diocesan finances. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please, Fred. The other set of debt is that the diocese, as you probably know, but we're going to touch base with it, the diocese is comprised of units of the diocese. Holy Comforter is not a separate entity. So this dirt, where we sit now, is owned by the Diocese of Florida. So let's say Holy Comforter wanted to add a building, and it went to a local lender and made arrangements for that project, that capital project. Because the owner of the dirt is the Diocese of Florida, and because Holy Comforter is not a separate entity, the bank looks to the diocese as a separate entity and the owner of the dirt to guarantee the loan. So in other words, if Holy Comforter was unable or unwilling to pay its loan, technically the diocese would have to step in. I want to give you 2 pieces of comfort about that. One is, and this is from my 37 years of recovering lawyerness, the bank has already deeply underwritten and examined Holy Comforter's financial ability to pay. They don't look to the diocese's ability to pay. they underwrite on a congregational basis. We have a congregation in the Jacksonville area doing a wonderful capital campaign and project where they've raised their money and they just need basically working capital. And the diocese will be guaranteeing that loan because, again, we own the dirt and we're incorporated. And just a quick aside on why incorporation is important, you can't sue an entity that's not incorporated. So the bank is not going to make a loan if it can't sue somebody. It's a great country. So that explains why we are guarantors on these 3 existing loans, and will be, as I mentioned, on the one that's in process. Also, it's super important to realize that our balance sheet, the diocesan balance sheet, because it is the owner of all these properties, has approximately $20 million of net assets to support the guarantees. So it's not like, it is important for the diocese to understand the financial operations of the diocese, but there's not a high level of risk to the diocese because of the way the loans are underwritten and the asset base that the diocese has. Now, we've been through a lot of deep minutia stuff. I'm going to stop there and see if y'all have any questions about either the debt to the diocese or the debt on which the diocese is secondarily liable as a guarantor. Yes, ma'am.
But my understanding is the previous 2 reports that showed that were the diocesan financial reports for 24 and partial 25, none of that income was based on accounts receivable assets in either of these 2 categories.
No, ma'am. And the reason for that, Lou, that is a great question. The reason for that is that can you go back one slide to 48? When a short-term loan is paid because it came out of Nehemiah, it goes back into Nehemiah. So as the loans are typically paid, most of them are paid quarterly, a few are paid monthly, but whenever those payments come back in to the diocese, they don't go to operating, they go to Nehemiah. And actually that leads to a really other super important point. Diocesan Council and Finance and staff and Standing Committee identified in, I guess, 2024 that the diocese historically has used some of Nehemiah or funds from Nehemiah for operating, is that non-operating support. And a policy was adopted that no Nehemiah money would go toward common ministry expenses. That Nehemiah was intended to be dedicated for buildings and structures and physical assets, and that Nehemiah would only be used for those purposes. So again, the reason that you don't see the payments coming in to the budget is because they don't come into the budget, they go back into Nehemiah. The payments, as Nella books the payments, they grow Nehemiah. Or I guess restore Nehemiah. Funds that have been used from Nehemiah go back into Nehemiah. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. It's what I was hoping was the answer, but I just thought I would ask it.
That's
so
a
we
great
could
question.
all be
No, you get the
clear.
gold star. That's the great question. Any other questions anybody has on debt of any type?
So building on that, when we were looking at the financial charts, a part of the additional income that we needed, I thought you said that 300,000 of that was from Nehemiah,
No, 300,000 of that was from the foundation.
from the foundation. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There are 3 investment accounts that run to the benefit of the diocese ultimately. And I'll take them kind of in reverse order of their accessibility in a way. The endowment, which is the diocese investment account, is one source of non-operating funding or support. The foundation, which is a separate entity but exists for our benefit, makes grants from its funds, which are also in investment accounts, for our benefit, for our use. And then the third is Nehemiah, which is the most restricted because it is, as we've said a couple times now, it's here for bricks and sticks and pews and air conditioning systems and roofs, and it's not here for common ministry budget. Okay, any other questions? These are great questions. Okay, a few other things that I want to share with you on exactly this point. Would you go to slide 50, please, Fred? We wanted to share with you the amounts at December 31 and July 31 in those two funds, the two funds that are funds of the diocese as opposed to funds of the foundation. As you can see, even with a crazy economy, from December 31 to July 31, Nehemiah grew by $1 million. The endowment grew by $870,000. Now, some of the $870,000 that you see there, those numbers will look different when you see August numbers, because some of the support that is budgeted for the diocese operations will have come out of the endowment fund. So it will be lower, even though, again, the markets are doing well this year. That number will be lower when you see it at convention. So don't be surprised by that, but I wanted you to know that. Nehemiah, we do have a few recently approved Nehemiah program support for a couple of dioceses, for a couple of congregations that will take that number down probably to a positive variance. I would guess, again, with the market doing well, I would guess probably in the $700,000 range. So, because we've done a couple of larger package or fundings lately. So those numbers are as of July 31, but during August, some of the other has been expended. So those numbers will be a little bit lower when you see them at convention. I've talked about the Nehemiah Fund being used only for property, and that, and Bob also has shared with us in the notes that I have that our year-to-date returns are roughly, from purely return on investment, are roughly in the 7% range so far this year, which is excellent, again, with the crazy economy that we've had. Roughly, the year-to-date return on investments have roughly been about $275,000 and $200,000 in endowment in Nehemiah. A few other points. Could you go to 51 for me, please, Fred? A few other points that Bob wanted to share. The diocese standing committee is the leadership of it, but with support of diocesan council, is continuing to do everything it can to improve the structure of the finance and investment committees, or the Finance and Investment Committee. That is the name of the committee. Mark serves on that committee, and they're doing a great job. One of the things that they're working on is the next bullet. They're working on investment policy, really kind of getting down in the weeds and looking at how our money is invested and commenting on the investment mix, working with our investment advisors. The excellent news, and I'm sworn to not let the cat completely out of the bag, is that our prior year audits are moving at a very rapid pace. And you want to come to convention for no other reason but to hear about it. Because it's our internal team and our treasurer, and especially our audit team, Lord bless them, have done an excellent job in moving those to being much closer to being caught up. But I'm going to stop there before I let the cat out of the bag. Another couple of notes, and you'll see that there's a bullet here about Camp Weed and the Serving Conference Center. Lori Sojourner, who was first our interim executive director beginning in March of last year, and then accepted it as a permanent position, has just done a magnificent job of capturing our financial data in a way that has never been captured. Literally, by the time that we got the bookkeeping support sorted, which was the fall of '24, she literally, with the support of the person who now does our bookkeeping work, turned around and forensically tore apart every little piece of 2024 to capture what our revenue really was, what our expenses really were, and to using that data to create, for the first time probably ever, a budget for 2025 against which we're now measuring. Again, to the knowledge of anybody involved, we have never had a true comparison budget at Camp Weed. So again, she's just done a marvelous job of that. And one of the best parts about that is that for you and for me, for years, Camp Weed's budget and performance, financial performance, has just been a black hole. Nobody could say anything about what it really was. We all had the sense, because of the excessive deferred maintenance, that it was probably not positive. But now we know exactly what it is, and we're in a position to work towards making it flow like it should, as the most important, or one of the most important diocesan ministries, but flow as it should flow. So again, Lori, just amazing work. And many of you know some of the team there. Gina is just amazing, and is support. At the same time, we're trying to clean up and create budgets and pay the bills every day. Gina's also been a huge support to the audit process, because so much about what was challenging us on getting audits complete over the last 5 years is the morass of the Camp Weed finances. And we have come light years in that regard. And finally, Bob also wanted to give a shout out to our in-house staff, Nella Kastioff and Linda Thomas, who have just done a magnificent job of going backwards, going forwards, going backwards, going forwards. Every time, Linda's an amazingly gentle, wonderful person. And every time I see her, in the hallway or at lunch or something, I'll say, "So how are you today, Linda?" She says, "Well, today I'm in 2023. And then the next time I see her, "Well, I made it to 2024. So you'll see them at convention, and they are a huge blessing to us. Well, that almost wraps us up. Let me share one more thing with you. Can we go to 52? Oh, sure. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Marcy.
Camp Weed as a budget line item sounds wonderful, and incorporating them into the broader diocesan budget. But will there also be a plan to address the deferred maintenance?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
In that financial scheme?
Right. That committee has been digging in on that. It's funny, we have two very active Bob Whites. One is Bob White Treasurer, one is Bob White Camp Weed. Bob White Camp Weed, who's a retired consultant with a lot of experience in the area of construction projects and forestry and so forth, has spent untold hours, particularly since January, working with contractors to come and give us real life bids. I mean, not just, I think, that might be, but literally walking the property with contractors, air conditioning contractors, roofing contractors. Y'all may know of the fairly prominent design build company out of Jacksonville, Haskell Company. They build airports and enormous projects like that. So we're too small a project for them, but still, just because Mr. Haskell and his family are faithful Episcopalians. They came out and spent a day with some of our team just walking the property, giving us observations. So Bob and Cortland Irick, the chair of that committee, have just, and Father Charlie Erkman as well, who's on that committee, have spent untold hours working on how Camp Weed can become sustainable. Now, I don't want to leave that answer or leave this answer in that subject without being super clear about something. And actually, Father Billy Servant, he's also on the committee, and he gave us a lot of peace with an observation recently. Even Young Life has amazing camp and conference center system. And even that ministry, those camps and conference centers rely on outside income for their sustainability. I don't want you to leave here tonight hearing me express that positive work has been done on the sustainability of Camp Weed without me being very clear that it is my expectation as your employee that Camp Weed must be treated as the major ministry it is. And to that end, there will be in any budget that makes any sense anytime a diocesan contribution to Camp Weed as a line item, just as we contribute to other ministries, the college ministries, the Hispanic ministries, the urban ministries. There will be a line item where the diocese contributes towards the sustainable operation, which makes sense. We also, one thing that we've gotten much more diligent about is we've been clear about paying our way as we use the camp. One of the probably inappropriate practices had been not to bill ourselves. Well, if we're a user, we need to pay. So all of our congregations and all of our ministries, from happening Curcio across the board, meetings of the diocese, meetings of the search committee, the bishop search committee, those are charged to the diocese and paid by the diocese. So anyway, incredible work has been done, Marcy, and there's much to do yet on that. And there will be more information about that coming, I would expect, in the next 3 to 6 months. But yes, there's been a lot of work done on that front. Great question. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sure. Thank you, Pam. Before we finish up, I do want to invite particularly y'all as our Tallahassee and Appalachia friends to be aware that Ruge Hall is in significant need of roofing and structural work, and has applied. I know the clergy know this because I keep beating on them about it. Has applied for a substantial grant from the state of Florida. Diocesan Council has already approved in principle the match required to achieve the grant. But it is very important, two things. If you have contacts with the commission under the Department of State that is the grant maker, please reach out to those folks and express support for the Ruge Hall grant project. On the 24th of this month, there will be, well, it's actually the 24th and the 25th, there will be meetings of the grant-making commission to both consider and rank our grant proposal. And any of you who are interested in coming, we would love to have you. We have an excellent consultant. We have a really solid, well-done application. Ruge really needs this money, particularly the roof system. The roof on the building is 94 years old. It is a work of art in and of itself. It's a very now increasingly rare clay tile. It would be a travesty, this is Keith speaking from his own perspective, it'd be a travesty of a historic structure like that to lose its roof of that type. The roof is a historical element. And so any support you'd love to share, or that your parishioners would love to share, or your friend or your Aunt Sally or your dog or anybody would like to share, you are more than welcome. And if you have any questions about that, please shoot me an email. We will be communicating more about it, which leads me to slide 52. We're really working hard to increase both our subscriber set and our hit rate on our three main communication vehicles. When Standing Committee assumed ecclesiastical authority in the fall of 23, one of our priorities, because I was then on, was to increase communication. And these three vehicles are going to completely tie you in. The one that's labeled Diocesan Digest will actually get you on the mailing list so that you'll get all diocesan emails. And right now we're averaging about one a day. But we work hard at communication, and we want the information about particularly the good going on in the Diocese of Florida to be shared among us. So please join us there. And we really welcome you. And then if you go to the last slide, Fred, that concludes us for tonight, and we look forward to seeing you at convention. But before we wind up, does anybody have any questions that have come up to them that we haven't addressed yet? Yes, ma'am.
Two on different topics. Number one, where is the meeting on the 24th?
Oh, it'll be at the Department of State.
Department of State downtown. And then do we have a diocesan communications committee that works with staff to do?
It's outsourced. It's outsourced. Some years ago, the decision was made that it was more cost effective and to achieve the expertise we wanted to outsource. We outsourced to a group in Jacksonville called High Reason. They participate in our weekly staff meetings. Mother Sarah and I have them on speed dial. Literally, I started my day at about 7:45 this morning communicating with our principal contact person, whose name is Tyler Holder. And the decision was made long before us that was the best approach. I'm sure as we go through our lives, as we have a new bishop, that she or he will look at our communications approach and decide if a return to a staff person is preferred. One thing about particularly local input, one of the things that we've tried to do in the last 6 months is really try to get the word out there about if you want to get your information into Diocesan Digest, if there's something special that your congregation is doing, all those sorts of things, here's how to do it. So we don't have a committee per se, but we've really made a push to draw our congregations into the communications more completely, so that it's not just information flowing out of 325, but it's information that y'all share with us that you want to share with others. And I'll just tell you, you send me anything you want to send me, but Deanna is your direct access, because on our little merry band, she's the communications liaison. Anything else? God bless you, and thank you for being here tonight.